What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Today we're going to be going over a science video. Not just any normal science video though, a Christian science video.
So describe that as a scientist, as a Christian. How does the biblical worldview provide a basis for everything that you do and everything that you teach?
It is gonna be spectacular, so I hope you guys are holding on to your butts because, oh, they are most definitely not gonna make stupid fucking arguments whatsoever. These fucks. So what we have tonight is this particular video. If you don't recognize them, that's Douchebaggy McGee over there on the left, and then you got Scientist McNerd over there on the right. I don't know their actual names, but considering the comedy in this video, you'll understand why I went those remedial routes.
What's up, guys? I'm here with Super Smart Kyle.
He's Super Smart Kyle, guys, and I got my full fucking beard. I bet you this guy's a hipster. He looks hipster-like. I mean, he's got the kind of the full beard going kind of thing. He's got the cool Christian pastor kind of look going. He's like, you know, I was into Christ before it was cool, guys.
Has much better goggles than I have. What's with that, man?
Just to make sure that I'm protected. I have to work with students using acids, and it's entertaining.
Yeah?
It's entertaining.
Super Smart Kyle. All right.
Why do you got those goggles there, buddy? Well, because we're messing with a whole bunch of chemical ingredients today, and that's standard procedure for any kind of fucking lab, thank you very much. Which I have to say, the goggles he has on looks more like ski goggles or something. Like he just happened to have them in his garage. The douchebag right here on screen was like, hey, listen, Kyle, listen, man, I really need you to like play a scientist. Could you act like you have a stick shoved so far up your ass you're having trouble talking? You got any kind of goggles? Those would be perfect.
So what are we doing today, Super Smart Kyle?
If you weren't able to rely on the future being like the past and knowing what to expect from chemical reactions and hear what we expect when we know the conditions of something so that we can control them.
Right.
Okay, right. Thank you. I'm so glad that you laid this out before. So, important note here that we can use past events in order to predict what most likely will happen in the future. You would think for any normal person that they would be like, oh yeah, totally. For some reason, they think that they're making a cogent argument with this video. I want you to keep that in mind when watching this. They think they are actually making a good argument.
So you're a total nerd.
A little bit.
Right.
A geek. I have a job and friends.
Good,
so.
okay.
I'm a geek. I have job and friends.
Nerds apparently don't have jobs or friends.
I don't know why it's like I have a job and I have friends. That's better than a nerd because a nerd just has a job and nobody fucking likes them, even at their job. I guess that would make me a nerd at work.
So,
Guy likes you?
Yeah, that's because he's the only liberal in the office. Hi, man. How you doing? I know he knows who I am.
So the idea is that with the Christian worldview, with the biblical worldview, we can actually have a basis for science, right?
Exactly.
Nature is uniform, it's law-like, we have past experiences, and based upon those past experiences, we can project into the future what will be the case, right?
So, yes, this guy just now kind of restated what the super nerdy Kyle guy just said, but he connected it to the Bible. And the reason why they think that science is connected to the Bible is because in the Old Testament, you have the repetition of the exact same events that happen over and over again. And the basic events are Israelites screw up and piss off God. God allows them to get fucked over, and then God comes in to rescue them. And it happens over and over and over again in the Old Testament. So these guys are trying to connect the uniformity of all of reality to what happens in the Old Testament in the Bible. This is, of course, a non sequitur. They just basically jump to conclusions here, and there's no real reason to think that the Bible was trying to impart this on anybody. The theology of the Old Testament is the fact that God will fuck you up if you do not bend down and suck his giant dick. That is what the Old Testament is used for. That is the only purpose of the Old Testament, to reinforce that you gotta suck that God dick.
And we have some baking soda, and we have a spoon and some strips. And what are these? What are these for? These look like they have carpet on them. Is that carpet?
No, it's not carpet. It's probably a loose pack polymer that contains a couple reagents, pH indicators and chlorine indicators, some other reactants.
Right, carpet. Okay, so
Yeah, I like it how he's like, yeah, science shit. Let's just put that right the fucketh over there. And now we're gonna do some science, huh? Science nerdy guy?
these are pH strips. Okay, so what are we gonna do?
So what we're looking at is an example of what happens when you have kind of a surprise reaction, and then what happens when you have sort of a controlled reaction.
Okay.
Here we've already pre-boiled this so that this soda doesn't have any more carbonation in it, because that's the first step to actually neutralizing it. So showing what happens
if you heat
between
up
acids and
soda, it
bases.
takes the bubbles out.
It does.
No more bubbles.
So I would say that the heat probably exacerbates the decarbonation of the liquid. If you just it just naturally it decarbonates over time. Just adding the heat probably allows it to release faster. That's it. That's all. And I mean, really, when it's sitting there and I mean, it's slowly gaining like heat and whatnot.
Super Smart Kyle. Okay, Super Smart Kyle. What's next?
So
Could you, I mean, I get that you don't like science and scientists and all that other shit, because we totally take a dump on your entire theology, because your entire theology is based on unscientific claims that you're trying to present in this video as being scientific. I get that you don't like that, but could you just, I don't know, reference him as Kyle? Like, everybody that's a scientist or is scientifically literate, you don't have to go up to him and be all like, hey there, Science-y Karen, how you doing today? You doing some science? Yuck!
now we're going to demonstrate what science would be like when we were trying to do reactions if we didn't know what to expect all the time. So I'm going to need you to carefully add a few of these to one of your bottles.
If he's trying to demonstrate, like, what happened, like, when we do this experiment without knowing what's going to happen, this is what it's going to do, but carefully do this. Like, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of being like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. It's like, oh, well, you're telling me to be careful with this. I mean, what's going to happen? You know?
Here's what I don't know. How old is this video? Because everybody has known what's going to happen here for about fucking 10 years.
The whole Mentos and Coke thing was popular back when I started
I don't
like
know,
high
maybe,
school.
Yeah, maybe even longer.
It's fucking been a while, okay?
All right, so we got the diet soda, and we got the Mentos, which is called the what?
This is what's going to be our surface area for removing
the fresh maker.
No? Okay, well, I'll take your word for it.
Now you understand what I mean by the horrible jokes here, and he feels like he's made a really good one, and it's just like, oh, the scientist has a stick shoved so far up his ass that he doesn't get jokes. Maybe he's even on the spectrum a little bit, I don't know. But, see, look, I made a joke, guys.
This is what's going to give us the surface area to release the carbonation in a slightly rapid fashion.
Okay.
That's the
It's
theory.
going to basically blow up.
That's the yes.
All right, ready?
See, this entire thing defeats the purpose of not knowing what's going to happen. He just told him what's going to happen and why it's going to happen. But yet they're acting like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen, and this is what happens when you don't know what's going to happen because of, past events. Yay!
See, if science was unpredictable, all of our experiments would look like this, and, well, we'd sort of have a mess on our hands.
So the idea.
So basically, if things weren't predictable in a way that you could make a hypothesis and test it, then everything would just be like a Coke with Mentos. It would just explode on you. Every single science experiment that you could think of just fucking explodes. I think that this is a rather oversimplified thing about it. If things weren't predictable, we wouldn't be able to do science in general, because you got to be able to test something to see if it's going to break. And it has to be something that's, predictable in manner. That's why, something that's like purely random, like you can't test for. But if you can isolate a variable, then you can test for that variable and see how different things affect that variable. That's why it's important to isolate your variable.
Is that if nature wasn't uniform, if the universe was unpredictable and chaos, you'd never know what experiment's going to do what.
No, you have to be able to understand what's going to be produced from your experiment so that you know how to control the reactions.
Okay. So let's try one and seal.
This one's going to make a mess.
Should I expect anything? Well, how do you do it? Is it bottom up, right? And you drop it, right? And launch it? Okay.
Do it.
Okay.
Ah, see, you failed in doing that too.
All right, now, when we go to do this in a more controlled fashion so that we know what to expect, we start by characterizing our system. In this case, we boil off a lot of our material so that we have no more carbonate salts. We check and see, all right, we're still very low on the pH scale below what this will actually read. The idea is, because this is a triprotic acid, we want to be adding in something to neutralize it and evolve some CO2 gas. Because a lot of that carbonate salt is already gone, there's some gas evolution.
Did you say evolution?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't
but
believe in
not,
that here, Kyle.
Not in the speciation sense.
Okay, look, right here they go into a dialogue about, you know, how they don't believe in evolution and how it's like evolution on a species level isn't like a real thing and everything like that. I have to call into question this scientist's credentials because like most scientists agree that evolution happened. And I know that there's a small fraction out there that are actually creationists and they don't believe that evolution's a real thing. Like those particular people, they have to actively ignore evidence in order to explain like their particular side. They actively ignore evidence. So this guy right here, I have to question whether or not he's an actual scientist, because if he is an actual scientist, then he's not doing very good science.
This is in the sense of producing a new chemical species from another existing chemical species.
Okay.
Okay, so I didn't point out, like, during the live stream about how fucky this entire explanation is right here, but it really is fucky. He's saying that he's evolving carbonation out of the decarbonated solution that he has there. You don't evolve carbonation out of anything. You're not evolving one chemical species to another chemical species. That's not what's happening here. He's causing chemical reactions. He's causing chemical byproducts. He's not evolving shit right here. So again, I have to question whether or not this guy is an actual scientist, because he is not really convincing me that he actually knows anything about science other than how to use big science words.
Here we should be past the point where we're under acidic conditions. We should have enough base present to neutralize it.
Enough bass present as opposed to treble?
Did you hear that, honey? He said he began trouble. Hey, trouble. That was the joke part. The trouble because of bass.
It is, but dad jokes are funny.
No, not in this particular light. These are not good dad jokes.
Would be if you were listening to some sort of a hipster song, but in this case, we're looking for acids and Lewis acids and bases. So there we see a significant color change.
You married, Kyle?
I am. People wonder how, but even scientists can get girls sometimes. So here we are. We're a little bit above.
I feel like this is like low-key shitting on the scientific community and their ability to get women, I guess.
Sometimes scientists are girls.
Yeah, I mean, like Michelle, she's a professional scientist, and she's right there in the chat.
Above neutral pH.
Okay.
Look at there.
All right.
So this is what happens when we understand the conditions going into a system.
Okay. So the idea is when you walk into your laboratory as a scientist, because you're super smart, Kyle, and you do these things, you actually didn't have to go out to purchase one of these.
No, I own this. Yeah,
Yes.
there are a couple stains here and there that are authentic.
Jesus Christ, could whoever's on the fucking video, like, actually know how to frame up a goddamn shot?
Yeah.
I don't know. Take a goddamn class or something. We were looking at his dick, honey. Thanks for noticing the guy's dick.
You're welcome.
Okay, so again, still just shitting on science, the science community. I mean, they're painting like a stereotypical picture of a scientist. That's why I kind of wonder whether or not this guy is actually a scientist. He might be. I mean, I don't know.
When you walk into your laboratory and you start to do experiments, do you walk into the laboratory going, hey, we don't know, like, we don't know what's going to happen?
I just have to remark on this really quick. A scientist is going into his lab to do science experiments. Like, for instance, this guy Probably a chemical scientist, if he's even a scientist at all. Chemistry scientist, whatever the fuck. Chemist. That's the word. Thank you, honey. This guy's probably a chemist. And he's going into his lab, and if he's got a test that he's going to run, he has a hypothesis about what may happen. And so he runs the test to see if it does happen. Now, any good scientist is going to tell you, like, well, I expect this to happen, but I don't really know. That's why I'm running the fucking test. That's why you run tests. That's why you do experiments, so that you can figure out what's gonna fucking happen. If you go into the lab and you start doing an experiment and you already know what's happening, that's a waste of fucking time.
That's how accidents happen, and that's how we learn how emergency showers work, so that's a bad idea.
Right. So
Sometimes accidents just happen. Way to go on you for shitting on all of the scientists that just so happen to run a test and it goes weirdly out, like you didn't expect that particular reaction to it, and then you need to use the emergency shower or whatever. Way to go shitting on all those good scientists that do all that hard chemistry shit.
So describe that as a scientist, as a Christian. How does the biblical worldview provide a basis for everything that you do and everything that you teach?
Oh, well, Hipster Danny, I'm gonna have to say it doesn't. There's nothing in the Bible that is scientific. If you read the Old Testament, that shit is definitely not concerning science, especially considering the fact that science wasn't even in its infancy when the Old Testament was written, let alone the New Testament. So the Bible doesn't actually have anything to do with fucking science. It has nothing to do with any of the scientific method or any of the scientific principles that we have come to know. So no, the Bible doesn't have jack shit to do with science, except for making it cry. The Bible makes science cry all the time.
Because we understand the ideas of things like the principle of induction, we can assume that the future will be as the past and that chemical reactions will be governed by specific behaviors, by specific laws. We are able to move forward and understand new things building on each of the principles that we've learned. And that's very much the way that we actually teach a lot of these labs if they're set up properly.
How the fuck did you get that from the Bible? I get that God God does say in the Bible that in the New Testament, that he is the same in the past, present, and the future. Like, I get that he says that, but is he really? Fuck no! God is not the same past, present, and future. In the Bible, at least. God is totally different in the Old Testament than he is in the New Testament. And you have apologetics that they use in order to get around that. Because the Old Testament was written for a specific time and specific people, and they were doing specific things, like pissing God off all the time. And then you got the New Testament where you got Jesus, the Son of God, coming back to right all the wrongs, and then God's just apparently gonna leave us alone until he, shits Taco Bell fire down on the earth. I don't know where he's getting this in the Bible, but I can guarantee you that he's having to read things into it.
So that students can build on the fundamental concepts in order to build a more rounded understanding of different separations methods, different things that are combined, and one of the things that I tell them frequently is beginning to sort of look into some of those invisible attributes that hold together the world.
So when you think about, say, an atheistic framework, atheist professors and scientists, colleagues, right? Mm-hmm. When they walk into a laboratory, they have a particular framework of the world. They believe the world is random.
They do.
Time and chance acting on matter, nothing immaterial. They don't believe in God, who personally governs everything. When you think about that worldview, how should that impact how they walk into the laboratory?
Religion is not science. It doesn't matter if I'm an atheist or a religious person. When you walk into the science lab, classroom, whatever the fuck, religion is not science and doesn't need to be brought up. Religion doesn't contain science. Religion doesn't concern science. R-E-L-I-G-I-O-N. Okay, well, it was small and next to the G, but I've made it a bit more prominent. Religion's not science, but they're trying to make religion into science, or they're trying to put science into the asshole of religion. Stop it!
If they really believed that and lived like it.
I think in a lot of regards they're somewhat foolish for obeying the laws to begin with, because they don't believe in an ultimate accountability, so they don't believe in anything that should resemble consistency in the lab, and I really don't understand how they cross that bridge of not being able to justify the principle of induction and using it every day. So
Induction is just a basic way that we can form different hypotheses and know how something happens in the future. There's nothing in the Bible or in religion at all that concerns that particular aspect, okay? So I get it that you're all hip for Jesus. I really do. But you can't work out how atheists can use induction or do any of this because of the fact that of the randomness of the universe. Because it's not random exactly. True, there are some truly random things that happen, like radioactive decay. What atom exactly decays into its daughter isotope is truly random. That's the most random thing that you can get in the universe, but other than things like that, nothing in this universe is exactly random. Everything has a causal chain. Everything does have this, and we have this in just basic science in general. But you want to act like we don't have a reason to, make these observations or to do science in general because you don't understand. All this boils down to is a personal incredulity fallacy. Basically, they don't understand how we can use science, but what he doesn't understand is the fact that his theological book has nothing to do with science. Starting with Genesis, it doesn't make sense. And if you want to try to say that the Bible has the same things in the past as in the present as it will happen in the future, you are totally fucking bullshitting all of us right now. Because what happened in Genesis is totally different from what fucking happens now. I can guarantee you solar systems don't form in 6 days, let alone full-fledged fucking planets, okay? But your Bible has that. You say you don't believe in evolution. That's fine if you don't want to believe in evolution. I accept evolution for the fact that it is, because it has mountains of evidence behind it. But you want to take a giant fucking dump on that just because your book says different. Your theological book says that the earth was made in 6 days, so obviously animals and plants can't fucking evolve into different animals and plants. You don't even know how evolution actually works. So let me just flip the script a little bit here and say this. Science plus religion doesn't make sense. It simply doesn't. Religion is caustic to science, and science is caustic to religion. These things don't mix whatsoever. Theology and science doesn't mix, because theology isn't about how the real world works. It's about how this supernatural world works and how all this supernatural stuff happens. So that just simply doesn't make sense. Why are you trying to involve the supernatural with a discipline that only handles natural shit that happens in reality? This shit right here can't detect ghosts. This shit right here can't prove that Jesus actually rose from the fucking dead. Okay, this shit right here can't do a lot of the things that the Bible says it's supposed to do, because you know what? It's fucking outside of reality, and all science can do is describe what's in reality. So I don't understand how you can be Christian or anything like that and then shit on science. I'm fine if you want to keep your religion, right, and not involve science in your in fucking shit. And I'm fine if you want to keep religion out of science. But you start mixing the two up and you get fucking pissed off GE here, okay? And that's exactly what you're doing with this fucking video, and it's fucking pissing me off, and I'm using the word fuck too much.
At the end of the day, these guys like to go home and, I don't know, drink whiskey and smoke cigars or something and pretend to not think about the fact that they cannot justify the very science that they're using to be their authority on truth.
What kind of fucking straw man are you attempting to build here? You just said that all scientists that don't involve religion in their jobs, I'm assuming that you're talking about professional scientists, all of them are just drunk cigar smokers that go home and masturbate or something to the idea that they can't resolve the two worlds. Are you seriously trying to paint this picture? I don't think that you're an actual scientist, or if you are, you're a definite dipshit in your workspace.